is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. And our special guest today is legendary singer Lizzy Borden. How are you doing today, Lizzy?
I am doing amazing in beautiful Las Vegas.
So you're living in Las Vegas these days, huh?
Yeah, I moved here in last September. I love it.
Oh, that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's Las Vegas and Nashville too. Like they're kind of what Los Angeles used to be back in the day. They're like they call it Music City, I think. But there are a lot of.
I mean, it's the entertainment capital of the world now. I mean, everybody comes through town, and I mean, every night you go see somebody, and it's just amazing. I've seen more shows in less than a year than I've seen in the last 5 years in LA. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, Lizzy. I got to welcome you back because you're coming back after 11 years. I mean, this is the first new full-length album in like 11 years. Did you intend to take 11 years off, or did time just kind of creep by you, if you know what I mean?
Well, I haven't really taken it off. I've taken it off from recording albums.
That's what I mean.
I've been touring.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And so I've been touring all over the world. Actually, lots of countries that played many times, and some countries I've never played. And we keep every time breaking new territory every time we play. But I took time off from recording albums because to tell you the truth, I didn't think I would be recording any more albums. The collapse of the music industry derailed all of that for me.
Yeah, I hear you. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I was recently in a Best Buy, which is one of the few places where you can actually still buy CDs. And sadly enough, one of the guys asked, "Hey, is there anything I can help you find?" And I said, "No, I'm just looking." He's like, "Well, I just want to inform you, come July, Best Buy's no longer going to be selling CDs," which is really a sad thing because probably like you, Lizzy, I'm an old school guy. I like to have a physical product in my hand. I like to read the liner notes, who wrote the songs and all that. So I think it's a very sad day. But I do, your latest album, My Midnight Things, I think is just proof that if somebody's a big enough fan of yours and if they want to, go to the length of ordering album off of either your website or like Amazon.com or CD Baby or something like that, they will buy the album because it's amazing to me, and you're probably made yourself, that this album you just released, been out just a couple of weeks and it's already moving up the charts. I mean, talk a little bit about that feeling, because that's got to be a great feeling after 11 years. You put out this great new album, people are really responding to it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is perfect timing. I mean, the reason why I stopped recording is just because of the way that the industry was, but it's been reconstructed on a certain level to be able to deal with how things work now.
Yeah. And
Metal Blade Records is a perfect example on how to reconstruct things. And for example, my last two albums didn't chart at all.
Wow.
And my new album, My Midnight Things, is number 148 in the whole country, competing with pop, rock, country, and everything else. So it's a reconstruction that made me want to come back and record. But you're right. I mean, the physical is it's a little hard to figure out why the physical is selling in certain places more, and then other places not at all. And for this record, we have bundles where you could get the T-shirt and the vinyl, colored vinyl, and you can get the digital download and the DVD and the CD all in one package. So it makes it worth to have that kind of package. And I think a lot of people are buying it that way because they get all of that. And so that's kind of another way that I never had. None of my albums ever came like that.
Yeah.
So it's they're finding new ways of trying to sell. But you're right. I mean, there is no. You got to support the mom and pop stores if you want to keep it at least the physical part in your life a little bit. But yeah, you can go to Walmart and buy any CD for $5, in the bin, but you can't get the new products there, only the back catalog stuff. So the new products are the ones that sell,
Yeah, or sadly enough, you might go to your local Walmart and you might be able to find, the Eagles' greatest hits, or Bob Dylan or Neil Diamond's greatest hits, but not necessarily the latest Lizzy Borden album. But your album is selling and it's getting out there. So again, the fan base is talking to you. And I think it's great after 11 years. You come back and people are really responding to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's the timing of it is perfect, and it felt right too. I mean, there was a couple, over the last 11 years we've been touring and talking about doing a new record, but every time I would think about it, I would talk myself out of it because, like I said, my last 2 records didn't chart at all. Yeah. So I just said, I don't want to go through all of that for that, but now the timing seems to be so right, and it felt right, and when I, recording of the album, and the songs and putting it all together felt right. It felt really natural. So, I mean, it was a lot of work, but still, even if it didn't sell, and even if no one, I felt proud of it. So, it's a timing issue, but also, I had to come off the road and concentrate on this record, and that's what I did.
And you got the album out like just in time for summer, during the busy touring season when people are off and checking out new music and checking bands out. And I think it's cool, like you said, that you have these neat little bundles, so people they don't just get the CD, but they get a little something extra, even if it's a T-shirt or whatever else you guys are including. I mean, I remember a few years ago seeing the band Tesla, and they put out a great covers CD, and they had like 2 volumes. Volume 1 you could buy in the store, but if you wanted to get Volume 2, the only way you could get that was by seeing the band live. They'd actually, when you'd walk in the the arena, they'd have somebody at the front handing out free CDs, but at Volume 2. But I thought that's a pretty cool thing. Okay, so people go to support the band they love. You get a free CD, a little something extra.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first one to ever do anything resembling that, I believe, was Prince.
Yeah.
He didn't want to release his album the way things were. And he sensed the collapse coming, and so he said the only way you can get my record is to come and see me live. And if you buy a ticket to my live show, you get the album for free. Yeah, and it was a really unique way, and I really thought that was going to catch on in a big way, but it didn't. But it was a pretty, everyone's trying to figure out, people don't talk about the collapse of the industry, but it's a huge collapse. I mean, the whole thing, imploded. So everyone's trying to figure out unique ways of keeping it going, and and it has to be a reconstruction, and that's and it's never going to be like it was. So
and you can either let it kill you or fight it, and I dig what you're doing, because I dig bands that continue to put out new music. I mean you're a type of guy, Lizzy, but you probably you got enough albums behind you. You probably could live off of your catalog of music, but the best compliment I can give you here in regards to your new album is like I just was watching the video today for the single Long May They Haunt Us, and I got to tell you, okay, anybody who's a Lizzy Borden fan, this is old school. It's old school metal, and you're not trying to be anything different than what you are. I mean, you could have gone in there and said, okay, this is 2018. I'm going to make a modern rock album, but no, you made a Lizzy Borden album. You know what I mean? And you're not trying to be anything than what you are. And I think that's part of the reason people are digging the new album.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first couple of albums, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of did them. And once I started learning how to write songs for the Visualize album and the Master of Disguise album, those were my 2 biggest successes by far. And so that's kind of what, especially the Master of Disguise album, it's my biggest selling record. So when I was making this one, I was very conscious of that, and that's my songwriting style in its purest form, and that's mostly 70s influences, but it's always been there. And so I just really bit down on the bit and just said, look, I'm gonna make this record this way, and I don't care if it's what year it is. And I just wanted to, there was a couple things I omitted that I've done in the past that it would have been so easy to do, and I just kind of said, you know what, I don't want to do that. So I kind of took pieces of that out, but for the most part, I stuck to my writing style, and that's the Midnight Things album.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like people check out this new album. You're not going to get Lizzy Borden goes grunge. I mean, it's just a great old school record, like you said. And going back to your Visualize album you mentioned, because like many people, I really dug that album. And as we sit here and talk today, it's kind of it's kind of weird, with everything going on with the so-called fake news and everything today, and the political climate being what it is, that you kind of were talking about that many years ago,
Yeah, I mean, lots of things repeat, and they do it in kind of in a different way. They go full circle, and they come back around again, but it comes back a little different. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about lots of different things, and I try and do it in more of a subtle way.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways to interpret with the way I write, and I leave all those doors open because I do want people to have their own interpretation, and it works. But I mean, I hear people interpreting my songs in such a unique way that it's it's such an amazing thing. Instead of writing a song about something that's obvious, and it's all the way through, and I love that too. But for me, I like to leave those doors open so people can interpret what I'm writing in so many different ways, and it's more fun for me to do that. It's harder to try and shape your lyrics with back doors open everywhere, but it's more gratifying in the end.
Well, I'd imagine too, as a songwriter, like you said, typically, when you go and write a song, once you record, you as a writer know what the song's about, but it must be a great feeling, like you're saying, when you have fans come up to you and say, that song really touched my heart. I went through a difficult time in my life, and it really made me think of what I went through, and like, well, that's not what the song's about, buddy, but hey, if that's what you got out of it, great.
Well, that's why I always say I try not to explain my songs because, my thought process of going through it, I really was trying to be open. I write in poetry form rather than storyboard form. So it is not a direct story. There's so many, with each line, you can go many different ways. And, one of the songs that always gets brought up is Me Against the World. It actually, it helped people, a lot of people going through those things, and when they read those lyrics, and this happens all over the world. So, I've had these people come up to me all over the world saying that song really meant so much to me during that time because it spoke to me in so many different ways. So, I try to do that a lot in this album too because, if your songs don't mean anything, then, I guess that's all right, but I try to make my songs mean something.
Now let me ask you, like, back in the day, like, for example, the Visualize album we were talking about, a lot of those early albums were based around, they were kind of like based around a concept. Now, as a writer, is it easier, like when you're writing a concept album and you have one theme that you're basing all the songs on, or is it easier to kind of do what you do with the new album, just go in there and kind of, these are the tunes I wrote and this is how it came out? And
well, all my albums are theme albums. I don't write concept albums because I don't like to be stuck with a storyline. But you could write a script, and I have around each one of my records individually, and also connect them too with different characters. But because I've done all of that in one way or another. But for every album, I pick a theme, and then I work under that umbrella. And for this album, I picked love because the last album I picked death, and the album before that I picked religion. And there's every album has something that I kind of used as a starting point, and I tried to connect all the dots based on that. And so I work under that umbrella, but I'm not tied. And I come up with a character, a main character usually, and then I kind of float a storyboard around all that, but it's so loose because I don't want to be tied to a concept. And,
makes sense.
That's what I did with this record. It's what I do with all my records.
Now let me ask you, like, about the new video itself for Long May They Haunt Us. Now, again, I love the video. Not just because it's a great song, but really, it really caught my eye visually. I mean, I love stuff that's visual like that. And so I was curious, like, talk a little bit about coming up with the concept, or I don't know if you want to say storyboard idea, how you came up with the idea to do a video, because it's a great looking video.
Yeah, it was the conversations with the director, and we were going back and forth, bouncing off ideas, and I had to explain what the song was about. And the song is about remembering those people that are no longer in our lives, whether they passed away or whether they're they're just no longer in our lives, but every day we wake up thinking about them. They haunt you in a way, and you don't want that haunt to go away. And that was kind of what that song was about. And so that was the main character. And then we stuck him in his, just brooding over this, thing he can't get over, and so we use different makeup to have different things. Like, when he's brooding, we use this really old makeup, and then when he's positive, we use the white makeup, and then when he's really negative and over the top, then we use the black makeup. So we wanted different makeups to create different moods.
Yeah, that's cool. I noticed that too. And talk a little bit about like how long did it get you to. How long did it take you for each scene to get made up, in that makeup?
Well, we shot it for 2 days in Pennsylvania, and I spent probably 7 hours in makeup all in total. It was grueling, but it was worth it. Like I said, we wanted the makeup to accentuate the mood of the character and what he was going through. Like, we have some remembrance scenes where he's thinking back, and and he's got no makeup on.
Yeah.
And then when I had to do the whole thing sitting on a chair. Wow. Which was really, anyone's ever done a video, it's movement that makes it interesting. So the director came up with the idea of me just sitting on this throne, brooding with all these ghosts behind me, and he's living in a ghost of his own world, and but I had to do the whole thing sitting. And it was such a challenge to try to be interesting sitting in a chair, and I didn't want to just be sitting there. So I just did my thing on there and tried to experiment. I've never done anything like that before, so it was really unique, and that's what I'm trying to do with everything, even this record, doing something that resembles what I've done in the past, but also finding new challenges.
Oh, that's great. Now, did you come up with the makeup design yourself, or do you have a makeup artist that was putting it on you, or did you do it yourself?
Well, it was bounced off the ideas that we did for the cover. Worked with, we used latex, and we were experimenting with latex when we did the photo shoot for this album. And so all of that was done, and we had a good time. So when we did this album, we had a makeup artist come in, and he took those latex ideas and then realized what the character was going through, and then we kind of built it around that. So it was kind of a power of deduction type of thing on what the mood this was, and what the look kind of this character was. And so we tried a bunch of different things, and that was the one we were just kind of going with. The old man makeup was really wild. Wow. Because I had never done that before, and we spent like 3 hours getting those subtle definitions all through there, but it was amazing, to go through all of that and then have that result.
I bet. Now, getting back to the song, the single there, it says based around the idea of like people that are no longer in your life, they've passed on, they're coming, you don't want them to ever they're coming back to haunt you, kind of. Now, are these people that maybe were good to you? Or these are people that were good in your life, people that influenced, people that maybe are not so good to you, that you're kind of remembering what they put you through, or a little bit of everything?
Well, oddly enough, I did 2 versions of this song, and the one version is on the bonus tracks, and it's a really dark version. And this is a real dark, brooding version. But for the one that's on the album, I really wanted it to be a celebration. I really wanted that anthem where you could just scream out, and while you're screaming the song, you're thinking about that person. And everybody, if I play that song in front of 50,000 people, everybody's going to have a different person in their mind. And that is the power of that. And so that was I wrote that song on a walk. No instruments, no nothing. And by the time I came back, I had probably 60% of the lyrics and the whole song written. All the melody lines, even the guitar solo. So it was. It just came to me. I didn't have. That's the way you hear it is the way I wrote it in that first instance.
Wow. Now, did you have anybody co-write with you, or did you write everything on your own?
I wrote everything on my own.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was just, I always write on my own. It's very difficult for me to write with anybody. If I do, it's usually someone will have a guitar riff, and I'll take the guitar riff, and then I'll go to bring it home and turn that guitar riff into a song, So I usually always write by myself.
Yeah, now, like I was saying earlier, I'm an old school guy. One thing I love about bands, like, I grew up on bands like you, Lizzy, and, Kiss, and, Twisted Sister, just all the great 80s rock bands. And what I love about so many of those bands and what you do is the fact that, it's not just great music, but you have a visual thing that you do with a live show. And, people come to a Lizzy Borden show, for example, they get a little extra. They get eye candy. Now, my question to you is, initially when you were getting your start in the music business, you were first, signing your first record deal and that, and just starting out, did you always want to have a visual thing to your act, or was that an idea you had? Would somebody else put that idea in your head? Talk a little bit about how that evolved.
Well, I mean, all my influences. But the first concert I had ever seen in my life was Kiss. And once you see Kiss, everything changes. And so I hadn't seen any bands before that. I just was like, oh my God, what is this? It was amazing. And then I slowly wandered and found out, of course, David Bowie and all his visual stuff, and Alice Cooper, all his visual stuff, and the Tubes, and a lot of the theatrical bands from the 70s that were doing these amazing things on stage, and really creating the blueprint of what I was to do, 10 years later. So what they were doing in the late, mid 70s or whatever, I would do in 1983. But yeah, I mean, I created this band based on that. I put an ad out saying, looking for a guitar player and bass player to form a theatrical rock band. So that was the words. That was the exact words. And I already had Joey Scott on drums. So, and he was on. He grew up on the same stuff I did. So we were. That was the whole goal from the very beginning. And the people who didn't. That's why I've had such a. And that's one of the reasons why I've had such a turnover in musicians is because, some people want to get serious and they want to do this and they want to do that, and they kind of want to back off the theatrics, and I'm just like, okay, well, go and do your thing and I'll keep doing my thing,
Yeah, that's going to be my next question because, of course, Kiss briefly took off their makeup for a brief period of time, and of course they're wearing it all these years later because that's what the fans kind of want. Did you ever have it? I guess not. That's my next question is, did you ever any desire to try to say, okay, Lizzy's going to remove his makeup, we're just going to give you a regular rock show?
Well, when I did the Master of Disguise album, it was probably the most stripped down Lizzy Borden up until that point. Yeah. And I stripped it down because I knew that I couldn't. The technology wasn't there to do the kind of show that I wanted to do, so I knew it was going to be like one spotlight type thing, and I wanted to bring that down to its darkest gothic moments, and so that's kind of why I stripped down the visual. It wouldn't have made sense for me to glitz it up that much and then try to bring it down into a dark kind of vibe, which is what that album was all about. So I stripped down the image on that one. I still wore costumes and stuff, but it was very stripped down. And then since then, I've gone on with a T-shirt and jeans before, touring. We're touring all over the world now, and sometimes we go one way in our luggage, and the whole stage show goes another.
Wow.
So you have to do the show with what you have, and sometimes you don't even have any clothes at all. You just have the clothes on your back, and so we've done those shows before too. But it always is a theatrical show, even without all of the visuals or any props or makeup or anything like that. It's still the same show. And people still respond exactly the same way, so I don't have to put anything on to get the same response. I just do it because it's the cherry on the top, and it's fun.
I hear you.
And people paying and coming out to see us, I want to give them everything I have.
I hear you. I mean, you hear. I'm sure you get this all the time. You hear bands saying, "Oh man, we just go out in our jeans and t-shirts." But I'd rather have a band do like what you're doing. Because again. If I want to just listen to the album, I go home in my bedroom and put on the CD. But if I want to really, get my money's worth, I go see a band like you or Kiss or a band that's gonna give me my money's worth.
Well, to be fair, not everybody's a performer. In fact, the majority of musicians in bands are not performers. They're musicians. And so banging their head is the most you're going to get out of them, and that's the most you should get out of them. Someone shouldn't be a performer that is not a performer. And it looks fake if they're trying to do it.
I hear you.
And they're not good at it. So
that's true too.
Just play your instrument, bang your head a little bit, and if you give us that, then that's fine. But the ones who are performers, it would be a shame not to have that. And there's very few performers left in hard rock, heavy metal, or whatever you want to call it. In this day and age, I mean, in the 70s, you had to be a performer. You had to learn how to be a performer, and it had to be natural. Now you don't have to do that. You can just be a musician, and that's fine too. But I'm a performer. I've been doing it my whole life, so it comes very natural to me.
And now, obviously, one guy we mentioned, earlier in the interview was Alice Cooper. He's a guy that came way before you now. Alice, I gotta give the guy credit. I mean, he's still doing what he does. He's almost 70 years old, and he's probably what I call him the originator, if you will. But I've heard Alice talk over years about when he was coming up with his act. He wanted to have. He thought there's not a rock villain. There's rock heroes, but I want to be a rock villain. When you're coming up with your act, like how do you see Lizzy Borden character? Do you see Lizzy Borden as a rock hero, a rock villain, or how would you describe Lizzy?
For each album, I create a character. I was probably more like David Bowie or Fee Waybill from the Tubes, because they reinvented themselves. Cooper created this one character, and he plays that character every night. And I created a character for each album, and I get to play him every night. And some of them don't talk to the audience. Some of them are closed off. Some of them are very, over the top, and it's so I'm able to change my personality for each character. But of course, Cooper started. It was Bowie and Cooper really started the whole theatrical movement. With maybe the exception of Arthur Brown. And I think there's one other that started before them. But as far as the getting into the public consciousness, it was definitely Bowie and Cooper.
And I understand Kiss took it to the next level, because they went to see Alice, and they're like, okay, there's one guy in that band made up, but instead of having just one guy get made up, why don't we have the whole band get made up? And that's how they came up with that idea. So it's kind of interesting thing.
And I love that too, because and no one really, maybe they put Alice Cooper in the reviews of the show for maybe the first 5 years, but after that, his name slipped off of there because they created such iconic characters that they didn't say that they were an Alice Cooper ripoff band, And so that's the unique thing about, especially the rock critics back there. They were very in tune with what was going on.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Kiss fan, and I've heard the band talk, when they were first getting signed, that people back in the day are telling me, you guys really got, you got a great sound, you got great songs, but you really have to wear that makeup. And it's funny, but that's what they became known for, and that's the one thing, that people love about the band, in addition to the songs and music. But people back in the day thought, you guys, what are you, gay? You got something gay going on? And it's like, but that's what they became known for. And it's funny how, the guys in the band knew better than the record labels.
It's also weird that, when you get somebody who finds this band Kiss, and they've got all the makeup and everything, and then they go see the show, and then they say, why are you wearing the makeup? It's like, why would you even go see the band? But that's such a small minority of people who take it so seriously that they think that it's not entertainment if you're not up there just making serious faces and having fun, really. And that's such a small amount of the audience that's in any genre, really. And you as an entertainer, you have to listen to those people, but the reality is they're the minority. They're the quiet. They're the noisiest minority. And so if you're coming to see, especially a Lizzy Borden show, if you don't know what you're getting, then and if you're shocked by it, then I don't know. I don't really. There's kind of one of those things where it's kind of unexplainable how people find their way there and why they take. I take what I do seriously, but at the same time, I don't want the audience
take it too serious.
They're there to have fun. And, that's my whole thing. The audience is there to have fun, not to take what I'm doing so seriously, even though I've had 40-piece orchestras playing my melodies.
Wow.
I've done more than most songwriters.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just because, I've had conductors take all my melodies and compose them for having a 40-piece orchestra play all this. I've seen accomplished violinists and horn sections and all these people doing my melodies that I wrote, So it's, if you want to take it serious, it's there. But, I can present it in a fun way, and that's what I try to do.
Now, have you ever thought of releasing any of that, or you think people...
Well, it was on the Master of Disguise album. If you listen to that, that's all an orchestra playing my melodies.
Oh, okay.
And so, that's an amazing thing, and most people didn't do orchestras back then.
Yeah.
Kiss did and Cooper did in the late 70s.
Yeah, even Deep Purple and Metallica.
Bob Ezrin,
Yeah.
And but I did the same thing in '89.
Wow.
And right on the verge of grunge. But then just a few short years later, everyone started doing orchestras.
Yeah.
But in '89, no one was, and so like I said, I'm writing melodies that these accomplished, amazing musicians were playing, and so I could take it serious or take myself serious, but I really don't, because I really, I take the work serious, but when I'm performing, it's supposed to be about enjoyment and fun.
Exactly. Now, getting back to the character of Lizzy Borden, I was curious because one thing I've always loved is it seems like on all the album covers, like you're saying, there's a different theme, and it seems like Lizzy Borden is kind of a ever-evolving character where like you never have the same look, and you're always kind of evolving. That's something I think that's cool. I think that's what makes you still vital today.
It helps me, when I write the characters for the album, so it's not the same thing. I'm not coming from the same place. I'm always. That's why when someone goes, "Well, you look crazy back then," I'm like, I didn't look crazy back then. The character looked crazy back then. We dressed the characters as they should have been, like the Bolivian character in Visual Eyes. He was full of electrodes, so of course he would be silver.
Yeah.
And in each character I had since then, the Appointment of Death, I was Death.
Wow.
So all the stuff that surrounded me, even on the album cover, I had 15-foot wings. He was an angel. So I want to I create these different characters, and the way they look is how I imagine they would look.
Oh wow!
So that's what enables me to not have to always come from my point of view. It's always from the character's point of view.
Now, a guy like me,
with some of my personal influences thrown in here and there.
Yeah, there are guys like me out there, but no, you've been doing this for years, Lizzy. But I imagine with the release of a new album, there are people that are discovering your music just for the first time, and the new album's the first thing they're hearing, and then maybe they go back and say, oh, this guy put out some other albums, I'll go check out those albums. That's got to be a great feeling too, that people are just, you've been doing all these years, but they're just discovering you for the first time.
That's another reason why this album sounds the way it does, because we've been touring all around Europe, and the audience we just noticed started getting really young.
Wow.
And the response of a young audience as opposed to an older audience is completely different. And that young audience, they go crazy. Every kind of emotion you can think of. And that was happening, all across Europe for us on the last tour.
Okay.
And they were responding to certain songs in the set. And those songs are probably similar, close to, some resemblance to what's on Midnight Things. And so they really helped me form the kind of album that I think this audience would want. But we were getting the same response that we were getting back in '87 and '89. So it was pretty awesome to see that happen, and that's why they're doing that, because they just discovered us. It's not like they're so young, they just discovered us, and they went back and they found all the records. And that's, to me, that happened even with Alice Cooper. By the time I discovered Cooper, the band had already broken up and everything, and then I think Welcome to Our Nightmare was one of the first records, and then I started, every time I went to a record store, there was a new record there, even though there were old records, so it was a pretty amazing discovery, and that happened to me with Blue Oyster Cult and a lot of other bands, so
it's just a cycle of life, or cycle of music, and much like Alice Cooper, Alice Cooper started out as kind of as a band concept. I was curious, Have you did you start out with the concept that Lizzy Borden was a band, or is it kind of always been your solo act? How do you see it?
It's always been a solo act, but we've marketed it. We've gone back and forth and marketed it different ways. Marketed as a band, we've marketed it as a solo project. But it's always been my vision. I've always had 100% control. I've been the only one with a record deal. But we were marketing it as a band at the very beginning. But when we had 4 releases in 14 months.
Yeah, wow.
So all that stuff happened in the very beginning, and then I ended up having a revolving door of musicians. So then we went to marketing it as a solo act, and then I had a couple of really good lineups that I really liked. So then we went back to marketing it as a band, but it's back to marketing it as a solo project because it always has been that way. We just marketed it different ways.
Yeah, well,
but I know that I probably won't have the same lineup for the duration of my career. So, and I never had through the whole, if I had a lineup together, it was only together for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're the one guy who's been there, from start to finish. And now, obviously, it sounds like your European fan base has stayed pretty loyal. And I've had people tell me, the European fans are really, they really support their rock bands and stuff. And I'm hoping that with this new album, it'll kind of re-elevate you here in America. Do you have any immediate plans to be touring behind the new album here in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's one of my pet peeves because North America is such a difficult place to tour. We haven't paid attention to it as much as I'd wanted. But every time we try to launch a tour, it just becomes so expensive and so impossible to do that we can tour anywhere. We can fly to the other end of the world, and it would be much cheaper than it is to play in North America.
That's sad.
So, and we get paid 10 times as much.
Yeah.
So it was it's one of those things. But for this album, I really, everyone came through and bought the record. The first week sales to be able to get to the top 200 and across the board on a lot of other charts. So I want to bring this show, and I'm working on a pretty big show. So I really want to bring this show to do a proper North American tour. So I'm working on it.
Congratulate you on that, though. The album moving up all those charts now. You're with the Mighty Metal Blade Records, once again, as we were saying, so hopefully they can help you. But what would be the ideal situation? Would you like to go out and kind of do a headlining tour, or would you equally be willing to go out there as a support act, on a big tour?
Whatever's going to create the most buzz.
Yeah.
It's very, like I said, North America is very difficult because there was a time when, there has to be a revolving fan base of the younger crowd, and for a while, all the kids got into hip hop, and they didn't get into hard rock or metal. Yeah. So we lost a couple good strides of that fan base, and so it's one of those things where whatever gets the most hype and the most gets people out to the venue and gets people most excited. So if that means pairing with another band, I had no problem with doing that. Or bringing the Midnight Things and doing the full production. I'm good with that as well. So whichever way is going to be the best fit for me in North America. Like I said, it's been a tough nut to crack. Yeah. And during the 80s and early 90s, all we did was do laps around the U.S. We'd finish one tour and book the next. We were constantly on the bus, constantly just going round and round and round the U.S. And then now, in the last 10, 15 years, it's been round and round the world and not so much the U.S. So I kind of want to include U.S. on this next run.
Yeah, and hopefully with the album still the way it is, if it continues to do so, hopefully those opportunities will, present themselves. And now living in Vegas, have you thought about playing any of the local clubs there? I know various places they have different residencies and all kind of, like you said, great rock shows.
Yeah, we've played pretty much every venue in Vegas. From House of Blues to every one of them. And we haven't played in a few years, but we definitely, anytime we do anything in North America, Vegas is usually involved. Even before I lived here, way before I lived here. So, we'll do something in Vegas for sure. If and when we launch this whole thing in North America, Vegas will definitely be one of the stops.
Well, that'd be great. Now, I know, of course, you're busy promoting your own career and working on your own music. But I don't know if you've ever heard of this band. They're kind of an up-and-coming band. I urge you to check them out. I think they're going to release their debut album. It's called Granny for Barrel, and it's kind of it's a theatrical rock act where the main guy is kind of a gender bender, dressed up like an old rockin' granny. Granny for Barrel is called. Actually, I think your publicist Chip, it's one of his acts, so you could maybe talk to him. But I think you guys would, if you got the two bands together, I think that would be like a great package tour.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, whatever gets the most exposure and hype and bringing not only the older crowd but the younger fans in, which is really important for anything. That's why we're doing so well in Europe, because of the younger audience. The younger audience brings in the older crowd, and everyone gets excited by the whole thing, and then the whole tour is successful. Yeah. So whatever band or whatever situation, that's the thing that I'm looking for to reestablish myself in North America. Yeah,
and of course, the album's just been out for a couple of weeks only, and we got the great first video and single, but based off response you got off of that, are you planning on maybe doing more videos?
Of course, yeah. We're working on the treatment for Obsessed With You right now.
Oh, cool. And before we wrap this up, I just want to thank you once again, Lizzy, for taking time to talk to me out of your busy schedule, and thanks Chip at Chipster PR for helping me set this up. He's a great guy to have behind you. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just everyone really support the album and actually put the $12 down for the CD. It means so much. Most fans don't have any understanding on that's the way you support an act. Yeah. They stream it or whatever. When they enjoy it, they'll come to see the show, but they actually won't put the $12 down for the CD. Yeah. Whether it's digital format or the physical format. Yeah. And they don't realize how much power that is. And so I try to remind kids, it's $12, put it down, and then that is the way you support not just my band but any band. Yeah. And I think, so I always try to remind people of that, because they don't really. Some of them just kind of they're just like, oh yeah, I love that band, but they don't actually pay the $12 for it, and that is it's very difficult for a band to exist if they don't sell the music that they write. Yeah,
I think part of a thing too is like you said. Besides that, I think fans, a lot of music fans, they got this thing where they want everything just immediately. Like, I don't need to buy the whole album. I'll just download one song for 90. I'll just download the single for 99 cents. They don't understand that that's how the bands make the money. And if nobody's buying the album, if the album's out there, you're not. They think, oh well, this guy Lizzy Borden, he's been put out. He's been touring and put out music for years. He must be a multimillionaire. And they really have no idea of just how much money and all that goes into just putting together an album, for people to buy. And
it works that way with the most successful bands in the world. I mean, even ones like Metallica. Yeah. You still need to, if you want to support Metallica, you still got to put the $12 down. Yeah. And so it's not just the bands that are scraping by; it's also the bands at the top too, because that's how you create. That's how you keep things going. That's how you keep this genre going. Yeah. And when the genre dies out, it will die out because no one buys the records anymore.
Yeah. Well, once again, Lizzy, I really enjoyed talking to you. So you got a huge supporter of me. So anytime you have anything to promote, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help spread the word about it, because it's been great talking to you. So I urge everybody to go out and get the new album. It's great. If you like old school metal, or you're an old school Lizzy Borden fan, you're just gonna love it.
Awesome, man. And follow me on Real Lizzy Borden at Twitter and all that other stuff.
yeah, we'll do this. And just for your information, Lizzy, the interview should be going maybe about a week or two. Once it does, I'll let Chip know, and at that point, if you'd like to post it on any of your websites, you're more than welcome to do so. But please keep in touch, okay? Take care, my friend.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.